daughter and I decided to spend Christmas in the Caribbean, and Belize seemed to be ideal for a scuba diving vacation. The centerpiece of our trip was a 3-day, 2-night camping trip to the Bluehole, a must for recreational diving in the region. Belize has the second largest coral reef, second only to Australia's Great Barrier Reef. Dive magazines sing the praises of Belize diving, and getting reservations took careful planning, especially get to dive the Bluehole. The Bluehole is not easy to get to. It's 35 miles off the coast of Belize, definitely not a one-day trip. Transporting all the dive gear, food, supplies, air tanks, and equipment requires an outfitter. Our 3-day trip followed a week of near-shore diving off San Pedro, so we felt ready for the big one. On arrival at Long Key, we did some wall diving at shallow depths just to look and to get familiar with our dive team of 8, plus our dive instructor and the rescue diver who would guide our Bluehole adventure the next morning. We all seemed prepared for the dive. We had briefings the night before and again at breakfast the day of the dive. We all felt rested and ready for the challenge. The Bluehole was made famous by Jacques Cousteau of the early 1970s television program. He had hardly discovered the Bluehole, but it was made a prime dive spot by his explorations described in his popular television show. Hundreds of divers visit the Bluehole each year in search of the adventure. The Bluehole is 1,000 feet across and 400 feet deep, a limestone sinkhole that formed millennia ago following a collapse of a cave. Coral formed on the ancient stalactites, providing the major attraction of the Bluehole, as there are little animal life or plant life in the Bluehole itself. The difficulty of the dive is the depths necessary to view the coral-encrusted stalactites, down at 130 feet, well beyond recreational diving limits, even for advanced divers. As a precaution for this hazardous diving, the outfitter provided, for our group of 8, a lead dive master, a certified dive instructor, and a following rescue diver. This seemed to be reasonable precautions for the recognized hazards. As we prepared for our dive, the 13th of our trip, there appeared out of the distant sky an airplane, an air-sea rescue pontoon float plane, the first I'd ever seen at sea, 35 miles from land. We surmised the pilot was moonlighting, taking divers out to dive the Bluehole. Little did we know how lucky this chance meeting at sea would become. The dive master explained the dive profile one more time.
This is how the ring around the hole. I stay like 5 feet from it, away from it, a wall will gather there. Right? Now, the wall, the Bluehole is like, where you see it's brown, that's the coral. From brown it changed to light green, that's 15 feet of water. From 15 feet, has a 45-degree angle that takes you all the way to 55. From 55, sheer vertical wall to 110. This used to be the thickness of the ceiling, 1,000 feet across. From 110, it cuts in, and it goes to 480. You won't be seeing bottom on this one, all right? Now, I'll give you some reference. The deepest stalactite is at 160. It's at 160. The undercut is at 110. So we'll be diving like in the middle of them, cruising in and out.
The trick to diving the Bluehole is a rapid descent. Divers are given 3 minutes to go from the surface to 130 feet down, or they must abort the dive. The divers need to rapidly get to depth to save air, because at 130 feet, the water's pressure means that air consumption is rapid. Our plan is to be only 8 minutes at depth, and then to have a slow ascent to 15 feet for a 3-minute safety stop before surfacing. The dive master would signal our assembly for ascent by striking his diver's knife on his air tank. No delays would be tolerated. When I surfaced, I was not aware that something was wrong. I can see now that my right side was paralyzed. All I sensed was I was having difficulty swimming. So I grabbed the line and pulled myself in. I had no pain, no sensation other than being at peace. When I got to the boat, I called for help. The response was fast. I was soon on the deck, stripped of my gear. A quick conference decided that the plane should be summoned for an air evacuation. My symptoms suggested something had gone wrong during the dive. No one knew what, but I definitely needed medical attention. This decision probably saved my life. The advantage of an air evacuation of a diving accident victim is quick transportation to medical help. The closest hyperbaric chamber was in San Pedro, and that was our destination as quickly as possible. The complication of an air evacuation of a diving accident victim is the plane must fly very low, only 500 feet above the water, or risk making the medical problem worse. Flying at high speed at 500 feet takes a good pilot and leaves no room for error.
San Pedro approach, Air Sea Rescue Victor 3, Hotel Mike Lima, over.
Victor 3, Hotel Mike Lima, this is San Pedro approach. Go ahead.
San Pedro, Hotel Mike Lima is inbound from Bluehole, 10 miles out at 500 feet. I have an emergency and request priority landing, over.
Hotel Mike Lima, state your emergency, over.
San Pedro, Hotel Mike Lima has a medical emergency. One male passenger who had a diving accident, over.
Hotel Mike Lima, do you have the airport in sight, over?
San Pedro, Hotel Mike Lima has the airport in sight, over.
Hotel Mike Lima, you're cleared to land. Medical assistance has been requested, over.
Hotel Mike Lima cleared to land, over.
Attention, San Pedro traffic. San Pedro traffic, medical emergency approach and landing in progress. All aircraft stay clear.
As soon as the plane stopped, the door flew open and Dr. Rodriguez asked me a few questions. I was then rushed to the clinic. Based on my responses to his questions, he diagnosed my problem as an embolism, or an air bubble that probably developed while I was diving. The bubble had traveled to my brain, causing paralysis. Many other symptoms could have appeared: vomiting, dizziness, numbness, tingling, even a personality change. Maybe that's why I felt so at peace on surfacing. The clues, the doctor noted, was the lateral paralysis and the symptoms appearing within 10 minutes of surfacing. I needed treatment fast to get rid of the bubble before it did some permanent damage.
Come to me now and lay your hands over me. Even if it's a lie, say it will be alright, and I shall believe. I'm broken into, and I know you're onto me. That I only come home when I'm so all alone, but I do believe that not
A hyperbaric chamber is used to repressurize a diving accident victim. I was quickly locked in the chamber and air started rushing in with a loud hiss. I was soon at a pressure equivalent to 160 feet of water depth. I tried to speak and I sounded like Donald Duck. The treatment required 3 sessions in the chamber totaling more than 16 hours. The intent of the treatment is to allow the body to respire the gas bubble, forced under high pressure of the tank, to become dissolved in the blood. I was instructed to alternate between pure oxygen from a mask and normal air to help speed the respiring process. From the time that I surfaced until the hyperbaric chamber slammed shut was 1 hour, an amazing set of lucky circumstances. The quick thinking of my dive partners and the crew, the immediate presence of an air sea rescue plane, and the brand new hyperbaric chamber in the clinic at San Pedro Airport all worked in my favor. Had these lucky circumstances not occurred, the outcome might have been tragic. I learned some lessons beyond luck, however. which I share with others who might have a diving mishap. When you are booking a dive vacation trip, ask about diving accident facilities. Make sure that if something goes wrong, you can get help fast. Visit with your dive master before the dive to review their procedures should something happen. If you are not comfortable, don't dive. Carry extra diving accident insurance. I had multiple policies in force, so the expense of the $10,000 chamber treatment and the $750 air evacuation were all covered by insurance. Had I not had insurance, it would have been a very expensive vacation indeed. Set your own personal dive depth limits and stick to it. Before the Blue Hole dive, my wife and I had agreed to a 60-foot depth limit to be extended only on special occasions. Our new rule is 60 feet, never to be broken no matter what. Finally, if something seems wrong, get help as soon as possible. The symptoms of diving accidents can temporarily disappear and then reappear later. Think of a bubble moving around in your circulatory system, causing different effects depending on where it is located. Regarding the embolism I developed, there are some precautions that can be taken. Most of these are covered in open water diving training, but like most people, I thought it would never happen to me. Embolisms form when the lungs are hyperextended. The compressed air of the scuba system compensates for the water's depth. As the diver changes depth, the regulator adjusts accordingly, so the lungs are at normal surface volume, but under pressure. A 4-foot change in water depth is sufficient to induce an embolism. It can happen to someone body surfing, gulping air in a trough of a wave and being surged upward on the crest. Dr. Rodriguez told of a dive instructor he once treated. While at depth, he took out his regulator from his mouth and shook it to clear it. During the interval, his depth changed, causing an embolism. He said many victims are underwater photographers who have the bad habit of holding their breath, waiting to get the right shot. What did I do wrong? I still don't know. It may have happened on my ascent. I have a bad habit of holding my breath while exerting myself. Maybe I kicked a few times to catch up with the group, not realizing I was straining and holding my breath. The best lesson is the same one the instructor tells everyone in open water diving class. Remember to breathe. I'm grateful to the Air Sea Rescue Service of San Pedro and to Dr. Rodriguez and his staff of the San Pedro Clinic. My injuries were temporary, but my gratitude is forever.